Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Urbanist Lens. I'm Drew, and today
I'm Andrea.
we're going deep on a topic that's been on my mind a lot lately,
Oh,
especially after my little adventure this morning. You see, I went to grab a coffee, right? My usual spot, just a quick walk. Should have been 5 minutes, tops. But nope, not today. Sidewalks all torn up, construction detours everywhere.
oh
It's like an
no.
obstacle course just to get my caffeine fix. It really got me thinking
Yeah,
about how crucial a well-connected street grid is.
I know exactly what you mean. It's amazing how these little inconveniences can really highlight what works and
Totally.
doesn't work in a city. And that actually ties in perfectly with what we're diving into today. Walkable cities.
Okay, yeah.
Our listeners have been super curious about this. What makes a city truly pedestrian friendly?
Yeah.
So we're going to break it all down.
We've got a ton to cover, 10 key design features that make a city walkable.
Right.
It's way more than just sidewalks. We're talking street layouts, building types, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, it's fascinating how all these pieces come together to shape the experience of a city. It's not just about checking boxes. It's about creating a place where people come first.
All right, let's start with something I know gets people talking. Mixed-use development.
Yes.
Where you've got shops, homes, offices, all mixed together in one area. Some folks worry about we're
Yeah.
being too busy. Others love the vibrancy. What's the take?
It's all about finding the right balance. The core idea is to have different types of spaces within walking distance. Imagine you walk out your door, you got shops, restaurants, maybe your work, even green spaces.
Oh, yeah,
All right there.
that's the dream. But how do you make that work without sacrificing that sense of peace and quiet
Right.
that people often want in their neighborhoods?
It's about good design, not cramming everything in, but blending it thoughtfully. So think, you might have quiet residential streets,
Okay.
and then those lead to a main street with more hustle and bustle, shops, cafes, maybe even a park in the middle.
Okay, so it's like pockets of different energy. Makes sense. But I mean, I can always just drive if I need to. What's the real advantage?
Well, yeah, convenience is huge, but think bigger picture. When everything is walkable, people might skip the car
Okay.
altogether for those short trips. Less traffic, people get more exercise, healthier lifestyle.
And you're more likely to run into your neighbors, right? Builds a sense of community.
Exactly. You feel connected to your neighborhood, you care about it more. Plus, all those people out and about, that's good news for local businesses.
Ah, so the economics come into play as well. Maybe we see more unique small businesses instead of
Right.
those big box stores that just rely on people driving in.
Right. It paints a pretty good picture, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. But hold on. Let's say we've got this perfect mix of everything.
Uh-huh.
If the streets themselves are a pain to walk on, doesn't that defeat the whole purpose?
Exactly. Remember my coffee detour.
Yeah.
That's a prime example of how even great amenities don't matter if
Right.
the streets aren't designed with pedestrians in mind.
And this goes beyond just having sidewalks, right? What else makes a street network actually connected?
So we're talking how the streets connect to each other, how many intersections there are, even alleys.
Alleys?
And mid-block crossings play a role.
I'm picturing dingy back streets, not exactly pedestrian-friendly.
No, but think about it. A well-designed alley can be a charming shortcut connecting parts of a neighborhood
Oh, okay.
in unexpected ways. Cobblestone paths, greenery, maybe even some art. It's about reclaiming those forgotten spaces.
So it's not just about being practical, it's about making the walking experience enjoyable.
Exactly. It's about allowing for spontaneous strolls, those moments where you discover a hidden cafe or a
Uh-huh.
little park you never knew existed. The city feels more explorable.
All right, so we've got the mix of what's there and how the streets themselves connect.
Right.
But what about the actual walking experience? I mean, the details of how the sidewalks, crosswalks, all that's designed.
Exactly. That's where pedestrian-friendly infrastructure comes in.
Okay, so break it down for us. What do we talk about here?
So many things. Sidewalk width, condition, crosswalk placement, even things like street lighting and benches
Bench?
for people to take a break.
Some might say these are just minor details, but I'm starting to see how they can really impact
Oh, they matter.
whether or not people actually want to walk.
Imagine walking down a narrow, cracked sidewalk, cars whizzing past inches away. Not exactly inviting.
No, not at all.
Wide sidewalks with room to walk side by side, clear crosswalks, trees for shade, these all make a difference.
Okay, I'm picturing those tree-lined streets, wide sidewalks, raised crosswalks. It already sounds so much better.
And imagine those crosswalks have countdown timers, so you're not rushing. It's about
Right.
making pedestrians feel like a priority.
Not an afterthought, like you were saying before.
Exactly. Speaking of feeling good, have you ever noticed how some cities just feel nicer to walk in?
Oh, yeah.
And it's not just the practical stuff, right?
Totally. I think about some of my favorite cities for walking, and they always have this charm. It's the tree-lined streets, the murals, those little parks where you can just take a break.
Exactly. Greenery and aesthetics. It's not just about looking pretty, it's crucial
Really.
to how we experience a city. Trees provide shade, clean the air, make walking comfortable, especially on hot days.
Right, right. I never really thought about trees actually regulating the temperature of a street.
Oh, it's huge, especially with climate change and these urban heat islands we hear about.
Okay.
But it's more than just that. Greenery actually affects us psychologically, too.
How so?
Studies show that being surrounded by nature, it can reduce stress, improve your mood, even boost creativity.
Wow, so it's not just about feeling good aesthetically. There are actual, like, mental and emotional benefits.
Exactly. It's about engaging all our senses, making us feel connected to our surroundings.
Okay.
That extends to things like public art, interesting architecture, even the sounds of a city.
So it's like creating this whole symphony of urban elements that come together.
It is. Think about the difference between walking down a boring concrete corridor and scrolling through a vibrant street.
Yeah.
Filled with colorful murals, cafes, street musicians. One's just functional, the other's a celebration
Yeah, no, I see the difference.
of city life.
All right, so we've got mixed use, connected streets, pedestrian-friendly design, and this sensory richness. What's next?
Let's talk human-scaled design.
Ooh, okay. Now this is where it gets interesting for me. We're getting into architecture, urban design.
Right.
But what exactly does human scale mean when we're talking about a city?
It's about creating a space that feels right for people. Comfortable, relatable, not like you're dwarfed by these
Oh, okay.
giant skyscrapers and overwhelming infrastructure.
Right, like you're a part of the city, not just passing through it.
Exactly. And this comes from a few things. Building heights are a big one.
Okay.
In a human-scale city, buildings are usually 2 to 6 stories tall, so the streets aren't blocked by skyscrapers,
Right.
blocking out the sun and making those windy canyons.
And that would make it more pleasant to walk around too, right? Not so windy and shadowy.
Absolutely. It's all about creating a comfortable microclimate for people. But it's not just height, it's the relationship
Okay.
between building height and street width, right? You want that balance so it feels welcoming but not claustrophobic.
So it's like creating an outdoor room, almost.
Exactly. And then you've got active facades.
Active facades, what's that?
Think about those ground floor spaces that are designed to engage people. Transparent windows so you can
Okay.
see the activity inside, storefronts that extend out onto the sidewalk, cafes with outdoor seating.
I love those. They make the street feel more alive, less like just a path to get from A to B.
Right. And if you can see what's happening inside buildings, it's safer too. More eyes on the street, as they say.
Ah, so it's about that feeling of safety and connection you were talking about earlier.
It is. Blurring those lines between public and private, creating a more inviting environment.
Okay, so we've got this human-scale design. Comfortable, engaging, safe. But what about accessibility? How do we make
Yeah.
sure that everyone, regardless of their visible abilities, can enjoy these walkable cities?
Such a crucial point. A truly walkable city is a city for everyone. And that means going beyond
Okay,
just wide sidewalks and curb cuts.
so what else do we need to consider?
It's about those universal accessibility standards. So we're talking curb ramps for wheelchairs,
Uh-huh.
tactile paving for people with visual impairments, audible crossing signals.
I can see how those would make a huge difference. It's about removing those barriers so everyone can
Right.
move around freely and safely.
Exactly. But it's more than the physical stuff, too. It's about a culture of awareness and inclusivity. Educating drivers,
Okay?
making sure businesses are accessible as a community that's supportive.
It's about designing a city that works for everyone, no matter what.
Exactly. It makes society more equitable and just for all.
Okay, we've got human-scale design, accessibility. Now, how do we design cities that really encourage people
Right.
to interact and connect, to build that sense of community we keep talking about?
This is where active public spaces come in.
Okay, give me an example.
Think plazas, markets, parks, waterfront promenades, those spaces that draw people in and make a city feel alive.
Oh yeah, I get it. Places where people can gather, relax, socialize.
Exactly, and they should be designed to be accessible and welcoming for pedestrians.
So you're not just passing through, you're encouraged to spend time there. And wouldn't that also encourage people
Right.
to get out and about more, be more active?
Absolutely. It's about blurring the lines between indoor and outdoor spaces, encouraging people to explore.
It's like the city becomes an extension of your living room, a place to connect with your neighbors and enjoy life.
Exactly. And these public spaces, they don't just benefit individuals, they foster a sense of community.
Yeah.
They're places to meet your neighbors, connect with people who share your interests.
It's about creating those shared experiences that make city life so special.
It is. A walkable city with vibrant public spaces is a city full of life, energy, and community.
All right, so public spaces are like the glue that holds a walkable city together, bringing people together and creating these shared
Yes.
experiences. What else do we need to think about?
Something that's super important these days. Sustainable and healthy urban design.
Right, sustainability is on everyone's mind, and cities are really facing the challenges of climate change
Yeah.
and public health. How does walkability play into that?
Well, think about it. Walkability encourages people to walk, bike, or take public transit, right?
Instead of driving.
Yeah, and that means fewer cars, lower carbon emissions, better air quality, less traffic.
So we're essentially nudging people towards healthier, more eco-friendly choices just by how we design our city.
Exactly. It's about making those sustainable choices easier and more appealing.
And of course, more walking equals more exercise, which is good for everyone's health. Less obesity, heart disease,
Right.
all of that.
It's a win-win for the planet and our own well-being. Plus, walkable cities tend to just be more pleasant.
Oh, yeah.
Less traffic, less noise, less pollution. That impacts mental and emotional health too.
So a walkable city is a healthier, happier, more sustainable city overall.
Exactly. And when we design with these goals in mind, it benefits everyone.
Okay, we've covered a lot, from sidewalk design to how it all impacts our health and the environment.
We have.
But there's one more thing I'm really interested in. How does walkability affect the local economy
Ah, yes.
and that whole vibe of street life?
This is where it all comes together. Walkable cities create this breeding ground for vibrant street life
Oh, okay.
and a thriving local economy. It's that bustling, energetic atmosphere.
You know, I'm picturing those European cities, the outdoor cafes, charming shops, street musicians. There's
Yeah.
such a different energy there.
And that translates into economic activity. When people are walking around, they're more likely to stop,
Okay.
explore shops, try new places.
Right, because when you're driving, you're just focused on getting where you're going. Walking lets you really experience it.
Exactly. It
It's-
drives the local economy.
Mhm.
Walkable streets give small businesses a chance to shine because they're
Right.
more visible and accessible.
It's like this positive feedback loop, right? Walkability brings people, which supports businesses, which makes it
Exactly.
even more appealing to walk around.
And it leads to more diversity, too. You don't need those giant parking lots. So you get
Yeah.
more unique, independent spots, those businesses that give a place its character.
You know, I'm already picturing myself walking down a tree-lined street, popping into those quirky shops,
Right.
grabbing a coffee at a cute little cafe. It just sounds like the ideal urban experience.
It's that sense of discovery and delight, and it fosters a feeling of ownership and community pride.
Okay, we've covered so much in this first part of our deep dive into walkable cities, from street design to the importance of greenery and making it accessible for everyone. It's a lot to consider.
It is, but as we've seen, the benefits are huge. Healthier cities, happier cities,
Right.
more sustainable, more vibrant economically. It's a goal worth pursuing.
Absolutely. So think about your own city. What elements of walkability do you see?
Yeah.
What could be better?
Yeah.
Keep those questions in mind as we keep going.
And remember, creating a walkable city is a process. It takes collaboration, new ideas,
Okay.
and a commitment from both people and policymakers.
We'll be right back to delve even deeper into the world of walkable cities.
You know, talking about all this, it makes me realize something. We often get caught up in the physical stuff.
What do you mean?
The sidewalks, the crosswalks, the buildings. But walkability, it's got this whole social and cultural side, too. That's
Oh.
just as important.
I get that. You can have the best streets in the world, but a city needs more than infrastructure to thrive.
Think about it. When you're walking, you're just more present, right? You notice your neighbors. You might chat with someone new, stumble upon a local event. That's where the magic happens.
So it's those little interactions, the chance encounters that really build a sense of community.
Exactly.
You're so isolated, but on foot, you're part of the street, you know?
Exactly. Even those brief moments, they make you feel like you belong, like you're part of something bigger.
Right, right. It's like those European cities we talked about, the plazas, those pedestrian streets. There's just this feeling
Yes.
that people are connected to their neighborhood.
It's not just a feeling. There's actually research that shows walkable places encourage social interaction and community.
Really?
People know their neighbors, they go to local events, they feel more ownership over their public spaces.
That's fascinating how urban design can actually influence how people interact with each other.
It can.
But I bet some people would say, well, walkable cities, that only works in those dense urban areas.
That's a mish. Yeah, we often think of dense cities, but the principles apply anywhere.
So even the suburbs could benefit.
Of course, it's about that sense of place, of connection. You can create walkable pockets, even in sprawling suburbs.
Okay.
Mixed-use development, pedestrian-friendly design, those inviting public spaces. It's about making it easy and enjoyable to walk, even for short trips.
So instead of automatically hopping in the car for every errand, you could walk or bike to a nearby shop or park.
Exactly. It's about options, breaking free from that car-dependent mindset. And when you do that,
Right.
you create a community that's more livable, sustainable, connected for everyone.
It's like this bigger picture shift towards a society that values people over cars, you know?
It is, but we have to admit, this shift, it's not always easy, especially in cities designed around cars for decades.
I'm thinking about those suburbs with winding roads, cul-de-sacs. Walking to the store feels like a trek.
Right. It'd take a major overhaul to make those places truly walkable.
New zoning laws, new infrastructure, and people would need to change how they think about it.
It takes a change in mindset. Absolutely. Giving up parking spaces, reducing car lanes, those can be tough pills to swallow.
Yeah, I imagine there'd be pushback from folks used to driving everywhere.
There will be, but we've seen the benefits, right? Healthier, more livable, more economically vibrant.
Right. It's about making the case that walkability makes a city better for everyone.
It does highlight that quality of life improvement. Imagine walking your kids to school, scrolling to the park,
Yeah,
meeting friends for dinner, no traffic, no parking hassles.
that sounds pretty idyllic.
People crave those experiences. They want alternatives to that stressful, isolating, car-centric life.
And cities are starting to catch on,
I
right?
know.
So any cities out there that are doing this really well, models for walkable design.
Oh, tons. Copenhagen is often mentioned. Big investment in bike lanes, pedestrian streets,
I've heard about them.
public transportation. But it goes beyond that. They've created a culture that values active transportation.
What about closer to home? Any North American cities getting it right?
Definitely. Portland, Seattle, New York, they're making progress. Investing in infrastructure,
Okay.
expanding transit, creating those inviting public spaces.
It's great to see these cities leading the way, showing it's possible even in a place where car culture
Absolutely.
has been so dominant.
And it's not just big cities either. Smaller towns are getting on board too, realizing the benefits.
It seems like this is really gaining momentum. It's about climate change. It's about wanting healthier lifestyles.
It is.
But also, people are just starting to appreciate that social and cultural aspect of walkable places.
You're right. And as more people actually experience it, I think this trend will keep growing.
Okay, so walkability is desirable. We get that. But it's not all sunshine and roses. There are challenges, right?
Of course. One of the biggest is dealing with what we already have, that car-centric infrastructure.
Right. Cities built for cars, wide roads, tons of parking, not much for pedestrians.
Exactly. Making those places walkable, it's a big, expensive job.
It's not just adding a few sidewalks. You might have to rethink the whole layout, the traffic flow, how the land is used.
You might have to.
And that means tough decisions, like reducing car lanes or parking. That can get political really fast.
It can. And then there's the money. Walkability projects, they cost a lot.
Uh-huh.
Getting that funding is a whole other challenge.
Especially now, with cities facing tight budgets and so many things demanding attention.
Yeah, it's tough. But look, I'm optimistic. I think people are starting to see how important this is. For our society, for our individual lives, the benefits are clear, and cities are responding.
It's like we're changing how we think about city design entirely.
It's a paradigm shift. It's driven by climate concerns, healthcare costs, people wanting connected communities.
Yeah,
They're tired of that isolation.
those are big motivators for change.
Okay.
And as more cities do this, it'll inspire others to follow.
It will.
But before we move on, I have to bring up safety. Because for people used to driving, walking more
Yes.
might sound scary.
It's a valid concern.
So how do we make sure these walkable cities are also safe cities?
It's a multi-layered problem. It starts with design, well-lit streets, clear sightlines, traffic calming features. They make a difference, reduce accidents, help people feel safer walking at any time.
It's about minimizing those conflicts between people and cars, prioritizing pedestrians.
Exactly. But it's also about community, that sense of responsibility. When people feel connected, they look
Yeah.
out for each other, report suspicious stuff.
It's that eyes on the street idea. More people around it naturally deters crime.
Exactly. It's not just being there, it's feeling ownership over those public spaces.
Right.
When you care about a place, you want to protect it.
So it's more than just the design. It's about that social fabric, the community aspect.
It's a whole approach, changing how we think, everyone working together.
Okay, let's talk economics for a second. Because walkable cities aren't just nice, they have real economic benefits.
Oh, absolutely.
What are some of the big ones?
Well, we touched on local businesses, but it goes way beyond that. Walkable cities, they usually have higher property values.
That makes sense. Convenience and being able to walk everywhere. People are willing to pay more for that.
Exactly. And those higher values mean more tax revenue for the city, so they can invest in more improvements.
It's like a win-win for the city's finances.
It is. And then there's transportation costs, walk more, drive less, you save on gas, car maintenance, parking.
That adds up, especially now with those costs being so high.
It does. And that money goes back into the local economy, supports businesses, creates jobs.
So walkability is good for the environment, our health, and our wallets.
It is a win-win all around. And as more cities realize this, I think we'll see them really embracing this walkable design.
I hope so. Okay, before we wrap up this part, I want to bring up technology.
Oh, interesting.
Because it's changing everything, how we live, how we experience cities. How do you see it affecting walkable cities?
Well, it's a two-sided coin. Some tech can make walkability even better, Imagine a navigation app
Oh, yeah.
that finds you not just the fastest route, but the most pleasant one for walking. Shady paths, less crowded areas.
That'd be awesome. It would make walking more fun, encourage people to explore.
Right, and then there are those apps that connect you to bike share programs, scooters. They extend how far you can go
Yeah.
without a car, fill in those gaps.
Okay, so tech can really complement walkability. But what about the downsides?
Well, we've got self-driving cars on the horizon,
Right.
and there's debate about how they'll change our cities. Some say they'll actually make traffic worse.
Really?
People will travel further because they don't have to drive themselves.
So even if people aren't behind the wheel, more cars on the road is bad news for walkability.
Exactly. And then there's distracted walking, people glued to their phones, not paying attention
Oh, yeah?
to their surroundings, more accidents.
I see that all the time. People with their heads down walking into things. It makes you realize
It does.
how important it is to design streets that are safe, even for those folks.
It is. We need forgiving design, but also education, awareness campaigns, reminding people to be mindful. It's about finding that balance.
Okay.
Embrace the good parts of technology, but make sure it doesn't undo all the progress we make with walkability.
So tech is a tool. It can help or hurt. It all depends how we use it and how our cities are designed.
Exactly. We've got to stay ahead of the curve, anticipate how new tech will change how we move around.
Right. Plan for a future that's both high-tech and pedestrian-friendly.
Yes.
This has been a great discussion, Andrea. Walkable cities, it's complicated. There's so much to consider.
It is.
But the benefits are undeniable. Social, cultural, environmental, economic, it all points to walkability.
Does.
Being more than just a trend, it's a whole new way of thinking about how we live.
Couldn't agree more. It's worth fighting for. I'm excited to see what cities come up with in the future.
Me too. Okay, we've covered a lot in this second part.
We have.
Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll wrap up with some final thoughts on walkable cities. And we're back. For this final part of our Walkable Cities deep dive, we've really unpacked a lot.
You have.
From the nuts and bolts of street design to the broader impacts on communities and a planet.
It's more than just putting in some sidewalks. It's a whole different way of thinking about urban design.
Yeah.
Putting people first.
And as we've seen, it pays off. Walkable cities are just more enjoyable, but they're also more sustainable.
Right.
Economically vibrant, healthier for everyone. It's a win all around.
And what's so cool is how all these pieces we talked about, the streets, the buildings, the businesses, they all fit together to create this experience that's greater than the sum of its parts.
It's like a well-designed ecosystem, everything working in harmony. But for me, the most powerful thing is how walkability shapes not just the physical space, but the social fabric of a city.
Absolutely. Think about it. When you're walking, you're so much more likely to run into your neighbors,
Yeah.
to strike up a conversation with someone you don't know, maybe even stumble upon some local event. Those little interactions just don't happen as much when everyone's stuck in their cars.
It's those chance encounters, those little moments of serendipity that make a city feel truly alive and vibrant.
They do.
And when people feel connected to their community like that, they're going to care about it more, they'll invest in it.
Absolutely.
It leads to safer, stronger, more resilient neighborhoods.
It creates this amazing positive feedback loop.
And it all starts with simply choosing to walk. Even if your city isn't perfectly walkable yet,
Right.
you can still embrace that walkable mindset. Explore your neighborhood on foot, support those businesses that cater to pedestrians.
I love that. It's about making those conscious choices, even if the built environment isn't quite there yet.
And speaking of choices, I think one of the biggest takeaways for me is this. We need to question those old assumptions
Yes.
about how cities should be designed. For so long, we've just accepted car dependency as the norm without really thinking about the consequences for our health, our communities, our planet. Walkability offers a completely different vision.
A vision where cities are built for people, not just for cars.
It's about taking back our streets, our public spaces, making them places for human connection, for enjoyment, for well-being.
Exactly.
And a truly walkable city, it has to be accessible to everyone, no matter their age, their ability, their income.
That's such an important point. Walkability shouldn't be a luxury. It should be a basic right for all citizens.
Absolutely.
And as we try to build a more sustainable and equitable future, I think walkability is going to be more and more crucial.
It's a movement that's gaining traction, and I'm really excited to see where it goes from here.
Me too.
So as we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with a challenge. Take a walk in your own city today.
Yeah.
But do it with fresh eyes. Look for those elements we talked about, the wide sidewalks, the tree-lined streets,
Right.
the inviting public spaces. But also, notice the areas where things could be better.
Yes.
Think about how your city could be more walkable, more enjoyable, more welcoming for everyone.
Exactly.
And most importantly, ask yourself, what can you do to help make that happen?
It's a conversation we all need to be part of.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into walkable cities. We hope it's given you some new insights
Yes.
and inspired you to think differently about your own urban environment.
And to embrace the power of walking to transform our cities and our lives.
Until next time, keep exploring.